Hi, everybody. I'm glad you could come and share a little bit of time with me. I have something extra that I want to do tonight that is in response to a lot of common questions that I get, and I thought maybe I'd take the time to clear up some of these little questions and give you a little bit more of an opportunity to understand why I lay out pictures the way I do, why my method for it is for many reasons, and not just to try and get an accurate drawing down on paper, although that's really important if you want to have things like good proportion and everything. But let me just go ahead and read a few of these questions. Somebody says, what's the biggest issue you see over and over again in student work that could make a big difference? And I think probably one of the biggest things, and you may notice it too when you look at drawings on the community, especially people who are just starting, I think people most often struggle with proportion. And my endeavor is to try to help you see the different elements, the important parts that make up good proportion. And it isn't really terribly hard if you can teach yourself to start noticing certain things. So we'll go over some of those things. I think that's probably the thing that's most frustrating for people, and we start getting all kinds of comments about, well, I don't think I have any talent and all that. So they just don't know what to look for. When you're brand new, you just don't. And anyway, the next one is, what happens if you get started in an inaccurate layout? Well, there are ways that you can go ahead and pull it back together by using some of the methods that I use for the layout, the straight edge divider well, the straight edge and divider comes in usually a little bit later, although there are many ways that you can incorporate it in to various places along the drawing process. If you're drawing freehand, you can use it for correcting things, or maybe establishing what is exactly needing to be adjusted. And the main thing is the proportions are off. And so if we can get those back in line, and there's many things that I want, again, to have you learn to look for so that you can be your own troubleshooter and not feel so helpless, and that you can make these corrections and feel confident and gain that experience. How can an artist improve their accuracy in drawings? Well, it's some of the same things. And I think that being able to establish and start recognizing angles, and obviously documenting some of the bearing points, and seeing how the angles play off of each other to create shapes, triangles in many cases. We can triangulate almost anything, and it doesn't mean that it is exactly the same shape all the time. A triangle can come in many, many different shapes. But if I can come from 2 points off of an established angle, I can usually go ahead and improve the accuracy. And sometimes I'm visualizing that when I'm coming to one of you that's asking me a question. I just have done it for so long. I'm not perfect at it, but I usually can see where some angles aren't matching up. The shape just isn't there. And if I can get you to visualize these things and have a method that you can establish that something is off, then you are going to be enjoying your art a lot more. Why should I use the straight edge and divider instead of just freehanding? It's not that you can't freehand. I think a lot of people feel that when they can't freehand, they're not artists. And if you've been around listening to what I have to say very long, you'll probably recall that I'm quite passionate about the fact that many people who have all kinds of potential just do not have an opportunity because they feel that anything that is other than freehanding is cheating. And I'm here to say once again that any aid that can help you start again, visualizing, gaining experience, start documenting some of these things in your head so you have something to recall, and you start visualizing your subject and your drawing different, is going to be a great opportunity for you to move on. And eventually, if you like to do freehanding, I do, then you have something that you can actually either pull over from one of your tools, and if you know how to run it, you can go ahead and correct your drawing, or you can start again noticing the same things that we're using in the layout, in that we're looking for angles. We want to make sure that three sides meet at a point, and we can start pinpointing how wide a mouth is, how wide a mouth is relationship to the eyes, or whether the nose is in the right place, and we can just start visualizing those alignments and have a way to actually calculate it out very easily. There's not any arithmetic, there's no mathematics, it's just training that visual eye to be able to look and notice some of those important elements that are going to make up a wonderful expression for you. Let's see, how and why does the straight edge method work? So I wanted to take this opportunity to go over this, and I hope that I can speed it up here and yet do it in a thorough enough way that it can be a little bit of a refresher and maybe give you, every time we look at something twice, we usually pick up something else. So I was hoping that we could use one of the models that we had in some of the previous lessons many months ago, and I want to be able to just go through this straight edge and divider method quickly, and I think you'll see what I'm talking about. I've got some panels prepared. I just want to encourage you on how to set it up. And again, I know there are many ways of starting a drawing. I've just found that this particular method, for me, if you're willing to at least learn it, will start establishing some of those important structural ingredients in making a good drawing or a painting or whatever you're wanting to go ahead and express. And because it starts giving you that opportunity to see what somebody else may see naturally, and you thought you didn't have any talent. But the more you do it, the more you're going to be able to come even to somebody else's drawing, and you'll notice it right off. Once you start looking for these things, you'll start seeing it, and you just have to be patient. Make sure you put that in your memory bank over a period of time. Repetition does that. That's another reason why I want to go over this a little bit tonight. And it'll give you the opportunity to have something that no one else will know but you, that you worked on it and you developed your talent. And now you have a chance to be an artist just like everyone else. It's not for the chosen few. And I really feel bad about people that think because they're able to draw freehand, and often it's not that great, when they criticize somebody else because yours maybe is even better than theirs, they want to know how you did it. And that, first of all, isn't any of their business, but I want to be able to let you participate, and it's not for these people who are going to narrow it down to the ones that have the natural ability, and then they can exclude you or call you, something other than an artist. I really have a lot of feelings about that. Let's go ahead and talk about the straight edge and divider method. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. As usual, I get so many things in my mind that I want to refer to that I'm trying to get it organized in my mind. We have this young lady, and I wanted to be able to take her just for a little bit tonight, and let's go ahead and go through that. How do we prepare the drawing? How do we prepare the initial drawing? How do we prepare our reference? How do we utilize this in a very exact way so that we can get something that's extremely accurate and add that satisfaction that we see something happening that makes sense. And then we can start adding our values and adding some of the other things like lighting and all these values and clean edges and curves and contours. And it'll help you to start just have a chance to feel it and not feel like you're just stuck. And we just go through this I see it all the time, and I just wish I could come and draw with you for a few minutes because I think it would probably help. What I want to do when I'm looking at a reference is I want to start where in the world is going to be the place that intersects something that I think is pretty critical. You'll notice that her head is tilted. I like that. Even if it was straight, I want to be able to know that. But there's a little bit of a fun attitude here, a little personality in this drawing or in this reference. And I want to make sure that I'm not missing that. And I also want to have an opportunity to, have as many of the important ingredients, the eyes are super important, that I can really establish well right from the start. And then I can have that feeling I'm connecting with my piece of art. So I went through and just found that, as I often do, when I have an opportunity, I often will go and I'll draw a line through the eyes. And I want to make sure that it intersects as many of the parts as possible. So already I will have an opportunity to have accuracy in the size relationship and all these different things. But I have this attitude. I have the opportunity to intersect every part of the eye if I want to. I can do as few things as I want to as well. And so this gives you an opportunity to challenge yourself with a little freehand drawing in there, kind of the same thing as a dot to dot. Where maybe as a kid you had a series of dots and you had a chance to go from maybe one number to the next or whatever, and suddenly you started seeing the figure that you were intended to see by just connecting all those numbers or dots. And so I'm running it through the eyes, and then I want to run it through a place that I think is pretty central. And so the opportunity I had here to go right between the eyes, pretty close, and come right down through in between the teeth. It makes it a lot easier. I already then have a pretty good idea where the teeth are going to go. I know where the nose is going to be. It looks like it's pretty much in the middle of both of these nostrils, but it's over to the side of the absolute center. And let me go ahead and maybe get this a little bit closer here. Oh, wrong way. You can see that I've intersected the most logical parts. And this is my vertical, I call it a vertical bearing line. I call the other one, even though it's at an angle, both of them are at an angle, I call them my vertical and horizontal bearing lines, just for lack of a better term. But it's going to give me an opportunity to lay this out so that I can have an opportunity to see the relationship between this line and the sides of the face, to the top of the head, to the chin. And what I'm going to do right here is pick the chin. Where does that line intersect the chin? And I'm going to take this just for your sake. I want to make sure that you know this is one of my main bearing points. This one is a little different, very important, because we're going to pivot off of this, and we're going to intersect this horizontal line in all kinds of different places. And we pivot off of that main one on the chin. And this gives us an accuracy and also a ratio depending on where I put this on this line. And I can go smaller, I can go larger, I can completely duplicate this drawing, as I construct it on my paper, and have it be pretty much just like the reference. You have to be careful about a few things. You don't want your ruler to just slip on you and you didn't pay attention, and now maybe something gets off quite a bit. But let me go ahead and just demonstrate that. Where's my cursor? There it is. And so when I'm on that pivot point, if it slipped a little bit, and then I'm still trying to line it up with the part that I want, I could end up by having this quite a bit off, because if it's off just a little bit, it keeps multiplying as it gets out here. The farther away it gets from that pivot point, the more I'm going to be off. So if I'm off on the pivot point at all, then I could really put the eyes in a different shape, different size, different ratio than everything else. But I usually take a smaller one, And I want to be able to have this smaller so that I can run it out around the edge, as many of you know. But there's so many beginners that I just want to take this opportunity to really introduce you here a little bit. I want to make sure that my picture is cut as square as I can, so that it's not a parallelogram, it's not skewed, but each side is equal and it's square. And that is going to allow me to have a lot of accuracy as I keep this in perfect parallel to the drawing paper. And that's really important because at any point during my drawing, I could reach over and pick up one of my tools and verify something later in my drawing that might be a little bit off. And because I can have this in the same layout, I can now, just put this parallel with my paper, and I can move it to any position. I can, if I want to line up two other things, I can move it to any position that feature lines up with and verify an angle. There's always angles, and angles can be between the ones we establish with lines that we're going to create, like that horizontal and vertical line, or we can go ahead and go between any 2 points and make an angle. And angles are always completely true. That's why I like them. It's not just a haphazard line put on a paper. And if I'm careful and I lay it out properly, well, then I'm going to have something that I can count on regardless of the size that I'm going to draw my drawing. It could be 2 inches, or it could be 6 inches or 8 inches. It could be put on a wall, but it doesn't make any difference how long that angle is. It's still always going to be true regardless of the enlargement or the reduction of my reproduction here. So what I want to do is I want to find a placement for my drawing, and I want to position it on my paper, and then I'm going to put my finger, or whatever, you can do whatever you want, but I just want to show this in a very simple way. I'm going to make sure, oh, that looks good, it's arranged, even though it's smaller than it's going to be. It seems to be arranged properly on the drawing, and I'm going to go ahead and now make a dot. And I'm going to make things much darker than what I would like you to make them so that you can see them. And you have to be careful about this because you don't want to go so dark that you can't get it off the paper. And so here's my main bearing point. This is the intersection between my vertical and my horizontal bearing lines. This is going to carry a lot of those features. My vertical one is going to intersect the chin, the bottom lip, both below and up near the inside of the mouth, the top lip and how high it is, the nose, where the hair starts. I don't care what I want to pick out. I have a chance to intersect a lot of things. On my other one, I'm going to be able to intersect all those features of the eyes, the sides of the face, and things like that. So now what I want to be able to do is I put that dot here, and I am going to, that's all I need to know after I've made my line on my reference. All I need to do now is take this and run this up so that it comes to that edge, making sure this is still very parallel. And I'm going to come up to where that dot, that bearing point, is right in line with the angle that's on here. And I'm going to come and make a bearing line on my paper. I want you to do it very light, and I would like you to do it so that it's not only light in color, but light pressure, because it's very difficult to get these things off if you're not careful. And that's why I prefer this over a grid. With a grid, I have all these lines I got to worry about trying to remove from my paper. And I don't like the results so often. I spent a lot of time on a drawing over the years, and I would have to try to figure out how to get those off. And here it is, one of my favorite drawings that I've done in a while, let's say. And now I've got all these lines that I can't completely remove, and they contrast so much with the wonderful grace and flow of a face or whatever I happen to be drawing. There's just something very nice about a natural form. And when you have a straight line, it just stands out like a sore thumb, so to speak, and you don't have a chance to get rid of it. It's really going to be obnoxious, especially once you see it. Now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to put, and let me go ahead and help you too with one thing that I forgot along the way. I know that this can be difficult. It's difficult watching all your different points. It's difficult moving the ruler around and keep it on the line here and line it up with the line on the paper and all these different things. And one thing that makes it easier is that I come out to the outer edge, if I can, and at home you're probably going to have an opportunity with a little more space than what I have. I'm kind of restricted with the camera, and I can't get too far out. Otherwise, you can't see it, as this is very small as well. But what I'll do is I'll use some adhesive, and there's other ways that you could stick it to it too. I just take one of my scrap pieces of paper, and I like it because it's at least as thick as the paper I'm drawing on. This is a 100 weight, 300 pound Strathmore Bristol vellum, and if I have a scrap piece of paper, well then I'll print this out, remember keeping it very square. I'll spray my paper I'm going to mount it on and spray the back of this and carefully place it down. And then I want to be very careful that I cut the edges again so that they're not hanging over the edges of the paper, but try to cut the thing again so that it's all a square, equal, not equal, but these are right angles or whatever, just so it stays a square, and again, not a parallelogram. A parallelogram would be like if I pull these corners and skew it, and it isn't really perfectly square. So I put that on here. It seems like it's just one piece, but this helps me to slide the ruler. And so I can either have this lined up and slide the ruler, or I can move the paper, and it gets me in control a little bit more, so I don't have to worry about the friction and it trying to drag my ruler out of position. And or there's one more thing I have to worry about, and sometimes you can start missing something. When I put my pencil stroke on here, I want it to be pulled towards me, or let's see, not pushing the point away. I don't want to go like this, because that point is going to be ever so slightly digging into the paper, whether you think so or not. It's going to make that line even harder to remove. And so I want to pull it if all possible, just kind of drag it, and I'm going to line that dot up again. I have it already lined up with this vertical line I have on my reference. And a print works very well because it's easier to draw on it if you want to make some lines on it. But I'm going to come up here. You can't see the top, but just take my word for it. We've got it coming here. Oh. It's good for you guys to watch me goof up. I hit my hand and made a jog in my line. But I can go ahead and clean that up. Now, again, these are darker than I want you to make them, because I always have the challenge of trying to do something that is going to be representative of what our project is, and hopefully have a nice finished product. And many times it is so difficult for me to get the line off because I'm using my darkest pencil so that you can see it, and making it a little darker besides, so that you can see it on camera and it doesn't just disappear. The 4H is plenty for you if you can see it and you don't end up by pushing too hard. But if a HB or something like that is better because you don't have to use as much pressure to see the line, then great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide my ratio. There's a very easy opportunity we have to decide what size do I want my paper, or want my drawing. I could make it exactly the same size. I could just go ahead and maybe take my divider, and I can go from here down to that bearing point on the chin. I decided to use the one on the chin. It could have been something down here, but I want it on something that is going to be an advantage, because that establishes already the edge of the chin. So I could come in here and I could do this, and I could come right over here and duplicate it. Or I could go ahead and do some of the only math that I would need to do, and that is, say, if I want it 2 times, I can go 2 times this. I can take this and I can put it on my ruler, and I can decide, okay, well, it's 2 times 1 3/4 inches. That's going to be 3.5. And you're working, many of you are working in centimeters and things like that, so I'm working in inches. So I can go ahead and decide how big this is going to be. I'm going to find out what I did here. I want to come up. I had already predetermined a size that I wanted it, and so I'm going to go ahead and just reference something I have over here, because I did some of the other drawings as well, and I want to be able to make sure that I'm staying within my limits here. It took some time to plan all that, so I didn't end up just having a random situation here. But here is my pivot point. I'm going to make that a little darker, and I'm going to put a circle just so that you can all make sure you see it. And now I have what's going to size the ratio of my picture. If I had put it down here, I would have had a larger drawing, because angles are going to be lining up with other angles. So we have these that are angles already, and if we go from here up to here, it's going to create the edge of the face, let's say, or the corner of an eye. If I'm down here and I use that same angle and it's true, then it's going to take longer to get out here, and this is going to enlarge my drawing. And when I've picked this distance on here, this now has solved everything for me. I no longer have to calculate anything. I don't have to measure anything. I can just let the process work everything out exactly the way it should be. And if you run into some problems, well, you can backtrack, and maybe we have a chance to discuss some of that as well. It's just as advantageous backwards as forwards, because it helps us troubleshoot. So now I'm going to figure out where I want to intersect and what I want to intersect, but now I'm no longer dependent on lining this up. What I want to be able to do is I want to take this straight edge, and I'm going to line it up with parts of the eye and parts of these features that I can now establish where they are in that horizontal line. That's why I picked that horizontal line. I'm going to come along here, and I'm going to now line it up with this. I'm on the inside corner, the tiered up corner of the drawing. I want to be as accurate as I can, and I'm going to pull this over far enough that it meets that pivot point. I already have my angle established. It isn't going to vary, and now I have a chance to find out exactly where I want to put this on the line. So it's going to intersect the line right there. Often what I'm going to do, because it's easy to get a whole lot of dots on here, is I will go ahead and remind myself, what am I drawing, by putting just a little bit of an angle that makes sense. Let's go ahead and get a little closer here, and at least for a moment, and you can see what I'm doing. So if I'm curious about what angle, it wouldn't do me any good to go straight up and try and create an eye. I want to try and capture the angle coming from the corner up to, wherever I'm going to go, as long as it's straight. So I want to turn this thing. And this is all part of that process of training your eye to see. Because if you turn these things around, you can go ahead and sight right up it. Now, I'm going to put it in a position where I can really sight right up that, and I'm going to have a pretty good idea of the angle of that corner of the eye. Boy, there I go. Okay, now if I want to go the other way, I think that it actually is pretty level with the bottom lid, but it's ever so slightly a little bit like that. But now I know what I'm working with. So let's go ahead and capture a few more things. I'm going to go to where the iris intersects that line. I'm going to my, better get to the right camera, sorry. I want to go to that pivot point on my reference. I always want to find that and then pivot this so that I am intersecting or finding out where that intersects that horizontal angled line that I have. And then I'm going to now, because I have this lined up with this bearing pivot point, I'm going to just slide my paper along here. If you've raised the paper up by doing what I told you to mount it, and now this is where that iris intersects that line. I can come over and make sure I'm on that pivot point, and I can come over to the other side and see where the other side of the iris is that intersects that line. I only want to do the things that are actually going to be giving me an opportunity to see where it intersects. So I know exactly where it's going to intersect, not by looking at the line, but looking at this pivot point, and I'm going to slide it over till it just meets that, keeping this parallel. Has to be parallel, otherwise your angles won't be true. And I'm going to come over here and establish the other side of the iris. Now I hope I can remember to put this back. I get so involved in demonstrating something that I keep forgetting. So here, now I have this opportunity to pay attention to the angle of that curve. And this is another reason why I keep telling you, I nitpick almost, because I'm saying watch which way that curve of that iris angles. Because if I were to come out here or go sharply over here, I'd change the size of that. And I'd change the natural quality of it. She's looking at us. Remember what that means. When she's looking at us, what we can see of her eye is that iris is going to be round. That's key. We don't want to have something that's an ellipse. We don't want it like a cat eye. We don't want, to start having it be a leaning blob of whatever. We want to make sure that we are completing a circle. So at some point, I'm going to make sure that what I see here going behind the lid and what I see coming up here underneath the upper lid, I'm going to want to maybe just complete it and see if what I have down here that shows on either side is going to be a round iris. And I can do that by just lightly sketching in as if I could see it and forget about the lids and just complete a circle. Then I want to be able to put the pupil in the center. We're not there yet, but I'm just trying to show you. Okay, so let's come out over here to this other side. I'm going to pick a place that may be a little nebulous because it has eyelashes there as well. So let's see if we can capture that. And I'm not going to do every tick on here. I'm going to get you to understand why I'm doing what I do, and then I will have something else that I can show you here. So how am I going to make sure how wide the eye is? How am I going to make sure that I'm intersecting that horizontal line? And I realize, again, it's at a tilt. It isn't perfectly horizontal, but we're just going to call it that. How can I make sure that I have that intersecting this line in the right place? I have this on this pivot point on the photo, which you can't see that well, but it's this one on her chin. And I'm going to come over there to that place on the eye, keeping it lined up. And then I'm going to come over here, and the only thing I need to worry about is keeping my paper and my reference parallel, as parallel as I can. That's why it's really important to have a good square cut. So take the time, to make sure your paper is not skewed and that your reference is going to be square. And then you'll always be able to go all the way from the beginning to the end of your drawing and have the opportunity to establish the angles in just the right way. And as you can see here, in a general way, I see an angle from here to here. I see somewhat of an angle here. I see an angle here. I see an angle from the corner to corner of the mouth. And there's just all kinds of things that are going to be great opportunities if I lay this out properly. Because if I don't pay attention to getting it in the right orientation, and that's my paper's rotated exactly the same as my reference, then I'm going to end up by having a real hard time guessing where all these points are going to go. So here is the edge of that eye. And I'm going to do the same thing, just making this as simple as I possibly can. I'm going to line this up, make sure this is parallel with my edge of my paper, and I'm going to look right up this, and I'm going to say, okay, it's about like that. Now, there's going to be some fine-tuning. There's going to be an opportunity to, change a few things, but generally, I know what I've just drawn, and that's what I'm really interested in. That's the beginning of the eye. And I want to be able to come over and maybe capture the side of the face where it intersects that eye. Let's go ahead and do that. We can take this and put it on that pivot point. Put it on the pivot point and come over here and see where does the side of the face intersect that line. All I need to do is worry about lining it up with that pivot point and that place I want to find. And then I can come over here, and let's get back. This is really difficult when you, this is why this is a fairly easy, simple, and I think kind of an enjoyable process because I know it's going to have a great outcome. And what happens is I end up by having to demonstrate it, and that makes a whole other thing out of it because I'm moving around. I'm so used to being in my own world when I do this. Okay, so now I want to make sure this is, when it gets down over here in the corner, sometimes there's not too much of the paper in the reference that matches up, so I really want to take care. I want to intersect that pivot point again. It's all I have to worry about. I've already established that bearing line, and it just is going to stay constant all the way through the process. And so here is the side of her face. Now I can go ahead and do the same thing, keeping the same in the same orientation. I can see how this angles away from that edge, both up and down. And if I really want to make sure that I have it right, I can get away from my bearing lines and just come over here and compare this angle. I can run this. I know there's a little bit of a curve, but I can fine tune that. And I can go ahead and say, well, from this point to this point, look at that's quite a bit of a straight angle here. So I can come over here now. I have that already documented there, and I can put this right up to that dot, and now I have quite a bit of that side of the face done. I have that little part, and I can fine tune it, round off the corners, and I've got the edge of the face. Now, what happens is I keep going on, and I will find the corners of the mouth from this place. No, I don't want to do that yet. I want to do everything that intersects this line first. And so I'll do the other eye. I can come out here and I can do maybe the outside of the hair. I can find out where this strand of hair is out here by just taking that from that pivot point and running it out, see where it intersects that line. Now I know how wide the head is, and I can pick out anything I think is important, where the wave or the bangs come across there. There's just many things that I can do. And I shouldn't say anything about the corners of the mouth because that's a whole nother, that's another position on here. But this is what I have when I get done. And this gives me the opportunity to now move on to the vertical line. This is starting to take shape. I don't know how high my eyelids are yet. I don't know how high of an arc. I don't know where the folds in the eyelids are. I don't know where the eyebrows are and all those kinds of things. But I wanted to get everything that came off of this. Now what I want to do is I want to find out how my nose and my mouth and the chin all line up. And so I could already take this because we already know this is accurate. I'm going to take this and put it in the same orientation as my reference, or as my, the reference, the paper. And I'm going to catch that angle. It's not square. She seems to have a little bit longer chin on the left as we're looking at her than on the right. But at least now I know that that's the edge of the chin. So let's go ahead and see what we can do here. And we'll do a few of these. And I've got another phase. I came out to this part here. I think I better do it in white. I'm going to pick this as my other bearing point. Let's do one more of the verticals. So see, I circled that in white so that we can see it. I'm just picking this major part of the hair and catching the edge and having that be the reference point that I'm going to find all my vertical things from, because now instead of this being my pivot point, I'll make this my pivot point. And everything will line up just the way we did from the other way, except we're going to turn it, we're not going to turn it, but we're going to do it from the side instead. So let me see here what we can do about letting you see this. Now I want to be able to line this up parallel again. You see that? See that little bit of a gap? Oh, that would be disastrous. Because what's going to happen is it's going to, again, multiply. If I have everything lined up on what I want to find, I'm going to end up with something that is going to be, this gap here is going to make this tilt quite a bit different. Look at how much that ruler will move just with that little bit. So you really got to make sure that you're always making sure that this is parallel. Now you can try and drag your paper around. You've seen me do it too, and make sure that I'm paying attention to everything, and it's hard to drag the ruler in the paper and keep it in the position I want it. And so that's why I suggest that you end up mounting it so that it's a little higher than your paper, not only the thickness of this, but it has the print copy on it as well, and that raises it up just enough that I can go ahead and use it as my pivot point. So I'm going to say, where's the end of my nose? Let's draw a line around here so we now know that this is our pivot point and our bearing line. I'm going to now have it on that pivot point to the end of the nose. Where does the nose intersect that line? And I'm going to now just worry about my pivot point. This is long enough that it's already going to intersect my vertical line. So here's my nose. I think what I'll do is I'll quickly document that. And it's not very wide there. That's the what do they call that? Septum of the nose. And it's not very wide. But even if you did it a little wider, you can always pare it down later. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the mouth, the opening of the mouth. Where does it line up on that line? Okay, I'm going to just bring it down until, again, it lines up with that pivot point. And now if I keep it parallel and I make sure it's still on that pivot point, that bearing mark there, now I know that this is the upper lip, the inside of the upper lip. So let me turn this around, and I'm going to do that as well. Oh, this is quite a tilt here. And I want to catch that tilt. Might be that her corner, as so often happens, one corner of a mouth could be a little higher than being perfectly parallel with the eye lineup. But anyway, it's really nice to be able to keep those attitudes. Let's get a little bit more of the mouth, and then we'll get ready to move on to the next thing. I'm going to get, okay, all right. Luke is saying that there's a couple questions here, so I'm glad to answer them. Tina wants to know why it seems I'm using both sides of the ruler depending on the situation. The side of the ruler makes no difference. It's what it lines up with. So if I'm up here on my pivot point and it goes and intersects the mouth and I'm on that side of my straight edge, then I'm going to come down here and line it up again with that pivot point, the one that I'm copying and manufacturing on my paper. And now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to see where that intersects on that line. Now you can see where if some of you were to say, okay, I'm lining this up with the the two reference points on my bearing points on my reference on the bottom, and I came over here on the upside of that. Wow, it's going to make maybe a little bit different. No, it doesn't. It isn't going to make a difference. You'll probably have a sense if you do run into a place where it could be this much off. Well, then maybe using this in a different way, in a different area of your drawing, you could run into a problem. But in this case, this is free of the picture, of the drawing, and this edge is on here, and yet I'm just lining this up until I come to that same bearing point here, and it works just fine. So there's a good opportunity for you. If you feel that you can see it better by running it down below, then that's just fine too. And sometimes I have to kind of lean over the ruler to see that top side, and it depends on the bevel you have on and everything as to whether you're going to have an accurate line. You want to be using a sharp pencil and making sure that you're as accurate as you can be, because boy, even with a dull lead you can be off quite a bit, and you just want to try to be as close as you can, because there's some play in how you're going to draw it and everything anyway. Was there something else, Luke, that somebody was asking? Christine is asking if it makes any difference and what size my reference photos are. I think this is about 5 inches by 5 inches. It doesn't always happen that way. This could be a little bit wider than tall. It could be even smaller than this. The reason that I chose this side, Christine, was I'm trying to have room with something small enough that I can go around and demonstrate this and yet still have you see to a large degree where I'm lining things up. You can still see the features. And you have to take a little bit of my description, I realize, because we're still kind of hampered by, we can't see it on my other camera very well. I could go ahead and come out here, and then I forget to adjust the camera. So, but anyway, it could be smaller. I thought I had a smaller one here, maybe just using as an example, but I don't see it right here, right now, because I decided not to use it, that's why. But you could have something that's, half this size if you thought that was advantageous to you. It just gets harder to see the points, the little places you want to intersect. And in reality, you could go one-on-one, or you could use this for your, this larger one. This is a 7x7, and I did my drawing. I'm doing my drawing quite a bit smaller. As many of you know, I like to work about 75-80% of what's the word of a natural size of a person, and so I don't like to work huge because I just don't have the time. If I had nothing else to do but to try to see how much detail I could put into something, first of all, I'd want a very detailed photograph and reference material, and have enough detail to put in a larger space. But I would have to take that much more time, and I want you to remember that, because this drawing is going to take me a certain amount of time. But if I say, well, I'd like to do a large drawing, and I've said this before, but just so you remember, every time I double the dimensions, if I had a paper that's twice this big, and it could easily be if we worked on the 19 by 24 piece that I would often work on, I even work larger occasionally, but not very often. But if I put it on that big of a paper and I enlarge my subject to twice the dimensions, I'm going to have 4 times the drawing. And that I have to take into consideration is going to take me a lot of time. And so I don't want to go too small. Too small cramps the space, and I start having to really have an understanding of what's going to work, but my drawing is going to be simpler. Some people like to put a lot of detail in a small space just to show how they can really work tiny, but you usually have to sacrifice something, because the point of my pencil can only be so sharp, and get in a limited point, limited space, And so the width of a line is going to be even more critical than it might normally be, because it could be, if the drawing was larger, it could be covering twice the space, just the line width. And then besides that, I have to start throwing out information, because I often don't have room, and things start just not even looking like a drawing anymore. And if you enlarge it, it's going to start falling apart and not looking really great. So I like to try to pick a drawing and work with a standard size. You can see that this is I don't know, less than my hand. Some of you ladies out there would probably be, your hand would probably be a good judge. But anything you can get to decide what the outcome. If you start freehanding and you don't have experience at it, you could end up with a size you never expected, just because you keep drawing where you started, and you'll end up with either a huge drawing or one that's skewed over to the side or something, because you didn't plan it out. This gives us an opportunity to place this on the paper very nicely as well. So the size of your reference isn't the critical part. It's really what works for you and helps you have as accurate of a drawing as possible. So you don't have to memorize the fact that I used a 5x5. You don't have to memorize the fact that this is 7x7. I could print up a larger piece for a reference that I can look at, and so I can see more detail on this. And then I can have what I like anyway. I like to print them in different values so that I start seeing contours and shadow and light direction and all those things by utilizing the manipulation of my reference and creating. And you can do the same thing with a copy. If that's all you have to work on, that's just, utilize that. But you can go ahead and print usually a lighter copy and a darker copy, and making sure that you're starting to see, again, what the reference is going to show you for light direction. It doesn't show too much here. I have this opened up lighter so that it can give us a good view of the detail. So was there something else, Luke? Okay, all right. So now I'm going to go along and I'm going to capture all the different things that I possibly can. I can even capture the top of the teeth. I can now find the top of the lip and start creating all of the points that intersect my vertical line. And again, just in case some of you missed it, I know it's tilting. It's not perfectly vertical. But anyway, that's what we're calling it, just for reference. And I can come all the way down to, where her collar is coming together, where the top of her head is. In fact, let's go ahead and do a couple more points, and then I'll show you the next the next phase here. So let's go ahead and just create our own bearing point here, our reference point on the top of that. That is it's because I used the zoom. I was wondering why it wasn't responding and going to a different camera. But anyway, I went ahead and I put this bearing point up here, and now I'm going to line this pivot point, what has become our new pivot bearing point, and I'm going to slide this along until again I meet up with my, and well, I'm going to go ahead and use that underside. Tina, thank you so much for asking that question and waking me up. I'm going to come up here. Yeah. Okay, so now it seems like things are kind of skewed a little bit. I guess it's because we have a little bit of an angle to that upper camera. So you can probably take a look that I have it here. I still see that it's lined up here and at my point I want to find. I'm going to put it on that reliable pivot point, and I'm going to come up here, and now we have the top of her head. I'm going to turn this around just quick and capture the angle of that. See which way my curve is going. Maybe adjust it later. I may not see it exactly like it could be, but you can see that I'm starting to come up with all these different places that intersect that vertical line. So now, if I kept going like that, there's plenty more to put on there. I can get the edge of the teeth. I can get the top and bottom of the lid. The lips. And it's going to look like this. And so now we just have a bunch of intersections. We know, I remember that this is the nose, so we know that we have this much distance for the length of the nose from that reference point at the middle of the between the eyes. And then I have the size of the lip, the top lip and the bottom lip, and there's a fold. I decided, well, I guess this is 2 different places on the lips. If you think that you want to find out and document where a pretty good turn in this curve is, I mean, you could find this and where her contour changes in her chin, and anything you think that you can remember why you did it. And this is what we're going to be able to now pick out other places on this drawing that we want to capture. Let's go ahead and find out where the corner of the mouth is. So let's come this way. This is a little bigger so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to come down to this bearing point, and I'm going to come out to the corner of the mouth, and I'm going to run this parallel until it intersects my my pivot point. So it's on those 2 points, and I'm going to take this and slide it along until I meet that pivot point on the drawing. Now remember, you may not think this is the most efficient. Maybe there are quicker ways, but what does it teach you? This is really establishing in my brain that I have an angle that is very important. I can't just make it like this. I can't make it like this. I can't just generalize if I'm going to have good proportion. And proportion is taking a part of the whole. As I look at this whole face, I want to make sure that what I have down here is going to be in the proper proportion so that it doesn't become a mouth that's too small or a mouth that's too big. It's in exactly the right ratio, the right proportion to the rest of the face. And that is, again, what happens so often when we're guessing. We don't have the opportunity to find out and have established points like this, but you can do this in your mind if you do this and practice it enough. I now know that, I can just imagine an angle here. Now I have to find out where the corner of the mouth is in relationship to that line. So let's come over here and do this one. I'm going to come from my other bearing point. Let's go out to the outer edge of the hair. And I'm going to slide this until I have an opportunity to put it onto that pivot point that we created on the edge of the hair. And I'm going to see where it intersects that line. And there is the corner of my mouth. Oh, happy day. So it's wonderful. And this line is not just a straight line. I want to start noticing some of the wonderful little nuances and the curves that find this particular woman, and how not only her attitude but her characteristics are going to maybe be slightly unique to her. And everybody is totally unique. So that little curve, maybe one side of the mouth is up a little higher than the other one, and it's just not completely symmetrical. There's all kinds of things that can happen. And I want to now create that corner. I'm going to have my reference parallel, and I'm just going to sight right up there, just like you're looking at fence posts lining up or trees in an orchard or something. And I want to just at least see what that represents. So already I'm starting to create the corner of the mouth. Now, if I keep going like that, I can find, again, any point. We can come over here and find the other earlobe, and it'll be the equivalent to this one over here. This one I didn't, I only got the side of the face, and I didn't take the time to show that that's actually an earlobe coming in there to the side of her face. Can you see her starting to peek through this? Let me go ahead and show you a lot of those points that I picked up. And this is what it would start looking like. I could go ahead and I could have spent more time maybe connecting the dots, but you see she's gradually starting to come together. And as I look at this thing and I see gaps that I need to draw, I want to make sure that I'm paying attention. What's going to happen when I start developing those curves that form the jaw line and how wide is this? I can pick out, let's see there's a kind of a turn. Where's the apex of this curve? I'm going to come back over there whether I feel secure about it or not. If I look at this and I'm looking again at this nice curve here, I want to kind of find out where is the apex of that curve. And then I can make a dot there. I can find it. And now I know that it goes back this way, and that's kind of the crest, and then it comes back this way. I can do the same thing right here. I can find where's the turn in that chin. It looks like it's kind of squared off or flat or kind of an angle there. And I can find out exactly where that is. And then I can pay attention, and where's the high point as I rotate this with my drawing and keep it in the same orientation. Where's the apex of that? And so I can duplicate it by making sure my reference is in exactly the same place, and I picked out my dot, and I'm not taking the time to find it right now, but we can do that. And now I have a chance to not show you what I'm doing, and that's good, but this gets so small. Anyway, now I have a chance to go ahead and create that chin. I can duplicate the angle. Looks like I got it a little bit angled differently because I'm just doing this quickly. And what happens is I continue finding those reference points that I make and I find that are not part of the horizontal and vertical lines. And now I have a chance to close the gaps even more, and you start seeing it developing. And there's probably a lot of refinement to do on this, but still I have a chance now to really not be so intimidated because some of my proportions may not be off. Now I can decide, well, I wonder if her cheek is maybe a little fuller in this drawing than I actually have for her. And I can come down and make my fine adjustments. And I start really paying attention more and more because I know it works. And it gives me so much confidence that now I'm not drawing in fear. I'm not drawing feeling helpless that anything could happen. And what happens if somebody sees it and it isn't accurate? I have a way of maybe correcting some of that. We all have to begin somewhere, though. You don't have to come out with the finest drawing, all technically, just world class. Keep learning. Take little bites at a time. And don't allow yourself to get disappointed because there's always an opportunity to learn something that is going to help you solve the problems and come up with something, especially over time. And I mean because you keep learning. And have something that's going to be very representational of your drawing. Now you start getting value in there, and you start thinking about how light works, and wow, this starts changing rapidly. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to answer a couple more questions here. And one of them is, can this method be used after the drawing is started? Well, I just showed you one of the ways. I can come in and verify an angle. I can maybe say, you know what, I wonder if this does line up with this one. It doesn't have to be just this side of the mouth, but it can be. That's just a double reference. I want to know if this lines up vertically. How does that line up? It lines up with the to the right of the iris. And these are the kind of things that I can come along after my drawing is initiated, after I've done quite a bit of work on it, and I might find that, man, I thought that was over here. And now I have a chance to correct that nagging little look that maybe because it wasn't lined up. So, with another feature. So that's another opportunity you have. You have an opportunity to always have something to reference. You always have something that you can verify in alignment, whether it's perfectly vertical or horizontal. I like those two things because that gives me the opportunity to see it in relationship to the rest of the face. That corner goes right up to the edge of that iris, and so on and so forth. I have a chance to now compare the width of the nose compared to where the eye, the tear duct starts, or that tooth, or whatever it is. And that keeps me on track. And there's nothing like being able to go ahead and continually refine your ability to have good proportion in your drawings. Let's look at another one here. Does it work for other objects or just portraits? Listen, I could go ahead and have an egg and have an opportunity to have the exact size I want. And I can, again, go around that egg. Remember, if I have an egg here, I can find has a little bit of a knob on it. But anyway, if I have a reference of an egg, all I have to do is just make any points along the edge of that reference I want to, even though it's just almost a round egg. And I can now have my reference over here. I can go ahead and put those ticks on my reference, and I can find out exactly where it's going to be. Now, I shouldn't have done this yet, because what happens if I have my reference from my egg over here and I make those little tick marks around the outside edge, then I'm going to see how it pivots on that pivot point. And now I can come from a couple different ways, and I can see where my crisscross places are. And I can come up with an accurate edge by coming from two different directions. And I know exactly how wide, how long, where it's curved, where it isn't. You can do the same thing with a flower. It could be a daisy with many petals. It could be a rose. It makes no difference what the subject is. It's not limited to just faces. Or maybe I want a horizon line that isn't quite level, or is, and I can use that as my bearing line to establish my drawing or my painting or whatever it is. So yes, you can use this thing in many, many different ways. And how does the straight edge method help me learn to see? It's because we have to keep seeing the angles and how it lines up with something else. And I just think it's extremely valuable. We start thinking in contrast of straight edges and curves, and we start seeing these differences and capturing them. And we start thinking about clean edges and contours and all kinds of things. When I have good proportion, I now can see where to start contouring something, where to put a little shadow underneath a cheek, because I know I can put it in the right place. In relationship to this ear, I can go ahead and decide where this is going to be. And where this little curve here is, and there's a little space in between here, I can go ahead and I can pinpoint any of those and or start seeing them more clearly as I learn to recognize these things. So when I'm looking at a scene out in nature, maybe somebody I want to draw at the airport, just sitting off quite a ways. Now I have a chance to get real accurate, see the length compared to something else, see the angle. Maybe they're sitting there with their legs crossed. You can start getting the proper angle and see it in size relationship to something else. Train your brain, and you will become, in most cases, much more capable than what you ever thought. And you don't have to have anybody shame you that you're cheating, because you are learning. And if they want to go ahead and stay stagnant in what they're doing, and maybe they have a special ability, bravo, you can like their work, but don't let them shame you and tell you you're not an artist and can't participate. So, will I always have to use the straight edge method to draw? That's what I'm just saying. If you enjoy doing freehand, and you think that you want to become better and better at that, at least you know what to start looking at. And you can see things in relationship to something else, coming up with good proportion and angles. Those angles you can visualize too. And it just becomes more, it becomes easier if you keep practicing and you have an opportunity to, capture it on the paper. So knowing your tools and how to draw, how to do those simplest things like we do with the patches and the sphere and all the other things, just continue to improve your handling of your material, your tools, and when you become very proficient at that, then you're going to have a lot more fun drawing because it's going to look like something. it increases your awareness and visual perception. Now, I wanted to say that I wanted to give this opportunity to maybe, hopefully, each time I do this, I hope I'm bringing a little more clarity into this process. And again, you can see as I'm talking about it way beyond just a way to get your drawing started, because you can use a grid and you might be able to do these little pieces and do them quite accurately, but you don't really have to start working with angles. You don't really have to start comparing a lot of the things. And when you work with the straight edge divider method, it helps you to be able to just have those elements in front of you all the time, and it just becomes so natural you don't have to necessarily think about them quite as much. But it develops that awareness and visual perception. But I wanted to let you know that we're going to put a set together. In fact, I think it's going to be just shortly, and it deals with this woman, but it has a lot more in them, as you know. And so it'll be a more comprehensive and give you an opportunity to review it one more time. I want to make drawing more fun for you. And so thank you so much for giving me that opportunity continually. It means so much to me. And to see the improvement and to see the joy that comes from all of you continuing to practice and realizing that, boy, I can do this and I'm improving, even if it's at your own pace. I thank you for the privilege of letting me share with you. So have a great time. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Luke, and I want to thank you for coming out tonight and watching the special presentation that Darrel put on. And I also want to say a big thank you to Darrel for putting this special presentation together. He's put a lot of energy and time into getting this all ready. Now, just like Darrel was saying a few minutes ago, there is a new set of drawing lessons that actually came out just a few days ago. And this new set goes into much greater detail on the same topic that Darrel was covering tonight about learning to draw more accurately. There are 5 total lessons in this new set, and each is a lesson that Darrel presented as an art studio class in his art studio weekly events. And together, this set of 5 lessons takes a new, fresh, and a really in-depth approach to learning, understanding, and mastering the use of a simple straight edge and how you can create accurate proportions. Now, I know some of you have asked, what if I already own like how to draw a portrait? Some of this is already covered in there. Do I need to get this one? And, even though Darrel did go into a lot of detail in how to draw a portrait about the straight edge and divider method, this is actually a really different take on Darrel's approach to teaching this method. And so even though they both have the same goal of getting you to learning this straight edge and divider method for drawing accurate proportions, it might be something that you want to take a look at and try out. And remember that we have a full 1-year guarantee. So you have a full year to basically take it for a test run, try it out, see how much it helps you. And if it doesn't show you everything that you feel like we've been promising here, all you have to do is give Diane a call or send her an email at support@5pencilmethod.com, and we'll give you all of your money back. No questions asked, no hard feelings. We really want you to just get this stuff in your hands and try it out, see how much it can help you improve your drawing skills. So thanks again for coming out tonight and spending your time with us. And click that link below, and we'll see you on the other side. Good night.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad you could come and share a little bit of time with me. I have something extra that I want to do tonight that is in response to a lot of common questions that I get, and I thought maybe I'd take the time.